Hi, folks. Welcome back to Ken Michaels Radio. Here on my channel, I interview a lot of people that are connected with the Beatles. And on today's show, we have a very special guest. Not so much a Beatles oriented interview, but we will get him to talk a little bit about the Beatles. But when you have a legend in your midst, there's no way that I can turn down an offer from this guy who dominated the charts, the singles charts in the first half of the 60s. Lots of classic tunes that like Volare and Wild One. And he's still going strong. I am honored to be interviewing Bobby Rydell. Hi, Bobby.
How you doing, Ken?
I just want you to know before we start that even though I have no recollection of how this happened, one of the very first records I ever owned, just as a little boy, is the 45 of The Fish.
Of all 45s, you had to get that one? What a terrible record that was.
Oh, come on. You don't. And even though I don't hear it that much on the radio, it's burned into my brain right here.
Oh, you're kidding. I
It
remember
is.
when I was on American Bandstand, right? And I'm lip syncing The Fish,
Uh-huh.
right? And I'm just lip syncing it. Come on, baby, let's do the fish. I'm going to teach it. And I'm just standing there, just mouthing the record, lip syncing to the record. And everybody's wondering, well, how do you do the fish? I didn't know how the hell you do the fish like this.
Was
Who
I thought
knows?
I thought there was some kind of dance called the fish. Was
If
there a
there
dance?
was, I never saw it. I recorded the fish. Let's do the fish, but I've never seen anybody do the fish.
Oh, okay. Well, I still love the record. And as they say,
Well, thank you.
if it's still up there, there's got to be, power to the song. I think so anyway.
Okay.
But let's go back to the very beginning. You're one of those people who I consider a rarity in the fact that, you can sing, you can dance, you can act, you're the whole package. But I know that early on, you love performing, you love doing impersonations, and you also played the drums as you still do. I even heard
Right.
you say that, you wanted to be a drummer. So
Oh,
how did
absolutely.
how
Yeah.
did you look at yourself early on? What was the image that you wanted to present of yourself? Is what happened to you what you really wanted to happen? Or would you have been happier if you were a successful drummer?
I believe either or, but at a very early age, when I was like 7, 8 years old, my dad used to take me around to nightclubs
Hmm.
and ask the club owner, could my son get up and sing a song and do some impersonations? And I would get up, sing a song, do some impersonations, and people would applaud. And I would think to myself at 7 years old, 8 years old, wow, all I have to do is do this and they do that. What a wonderful feeling. So the only reason I'm in the business today is because of my dad. If I had any talent within me whatsoever, my dad was the first one to see it. But when I was 5 years old, my father took me to a place in Philadelphia called the Earl Theater to see the Benny Goodman Band. My father loved big bands,
Hmm.
and he wanted to introduce me to that kind of music. So I'm 5 years old, and I'm listening to Benny Goodman, four trumpets, four trombones, five saxophones, piano, bass, rhythm guitar, drums, and it was wonderful. And I said to my father, I said, I don't know who that guy playing drums is, Daddy. I said, but I want to be him. And his name was Gene Krupa, one of the
Uh-huh.
great drummers of all time.
Sure.
And I started playing drums at 5, 6 years old. To answer your question, I think either or. You know, if I
Hmm.
would have been a successful drummer, like say a studio drummer, like say a Hal Blaine,
Right.
out on the West Coast with the Wrecking Crew, I was pretty good. I was a pretty good player. I still play today, not as much as I did years ago, but to answer your question, one way or the other, I think I would have been happy.
Yeah. Would you have been happy as a session player?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. To be able to work with some of the artists that the Wrecking Crew worked with, my God, sure, would have been
Yeah.
wonderful.
They all have stories to tell, boy. And
Oh yes, they do. Yeah,
Hal Blaine was on everything. He really
yeah, he
was.
was. A funny story about Hal. There was a drummer in New York City. His name was Gary Chester, and Gary Chester was the studio guy in New York City. and Hal Blaine took out an ad in Billboard magazine, and he wrote, "Dear Gary, don't worry, I'm only in town for one day. Your friend Hal Blaine." Like he was going to take Gary Chester's work away from him.
Yeah. Boy, Hal
Yeah.
Blaine is someone that I greatly admire because of the fact that he mastered every style of music, whatever what was
Oh my
required
God,
of
he
him.
played for everybody from
Yeah,
Sinatra on down. You know, he played for everybody. Sure.
Herb Albert, you name it.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as your singing is concerned, I know that you became friends with Frank Sinatra, and I'm wondering beyond Sinatra, I'm thinking of all the great singers you must have. Who were the people that you tried to emulate, or who did you idolize in your youth?
Well, Sinatra, of course, was number one. I remember, I think I first started listening to Sinatra when I was about 10 years old. And I adored him at 10 and up until now. I'll be 79 this month. And, he was, and just the pleasure of meeting him when I was 19 years old and sat with him at a table in the Copacabana
Right.
in New York City with, uh, uh, uh,
I think
I'm
Sammy
trying to
Kahn,
remember now.
Sammy
Sammy
Kahn, I
Kahn,
think
Jimmy
was it?
Van Heusen,
Yeah.
Sammy Kahn, Jimmy Van Heusen, two marvelous lyricists, songwriters, Richard Conte, Joe DiMaggio, and Frank. Wow, it was great. But there's another guy who I absolutely adore, and I've known him for quite a few years, and that's Steve Lawrence.
Oh, great singer.
Steve Lawrence, one hell of a singer, one hell of a singer. Yeah.
I was wondering because you had a hit with Volare, and Volare
Huh?
was a hit several times before that, Domenico Modugno,
Correct.
but
Yeah.
also Dean Martin.
Yeah. Dean.
Dean,
That's right. Dean Martin.
and Dean Martin also did Sway, which you did.
Yeah, yeah, huh? Yeah, Dean
So,
did Sway. And another guy that's out there who I think is really a wonderful singer is Michael Bublé. And I think the first song that introduced him to the public was Sway. He did a different version other than my version and Dean's version. Of course, Dean's version was just like Domenico Modugno's. And mine was totally different than Modugno's and Martin. And then Blue Blade came out, and recorded Sway.
is there any difficulty in covering a song that was just recently a hit? You'll probably have someone say, "Well, you can't top a number one song with Domenico Modugno."
I really don't know. I really don't know, Ken. All I know is that, Dave Apple, who did all of the arranging for me when I was with Cameo, which later became Cameo Parkway, the tune just laid itself, totally different, than Modugno's or Martin's.
Hmm.
And so the whole arrangement was, Sway and Volati was totally different. So basically, it was my own version, of how I, interpreted the song
Right.
due
So,
to the arrangement.
yeah. Talk about Dave Appel because I'm always fascinated by people behind the scenes. And Dave wrote the melodies for many of your hits. And I mean,
Yeah, he did. Yeah, Bernie Lowe and Cal Mann wrote the lyrics, and Dave Apple was the one who did the melody. And he was just marvelous. He was a marvelous, marvelous guy. He really was, and he had hit records as well when he was with Cameo with Dave Apple and the Applejacks. The
hmm,
Mexican hot rock, da 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 boom boom da 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 da.
uh-huh.
And he was just wonderful to work with. He was a very, very talented and very astute, musician, extremely astute.
Did you watch him and the others when they wrote these songs? And were they
No,
thinking
no,
automatically of you when they wrote them?
that's a good question. I really don't know. I would imagine that my first hit record, Summer of '59, was Kissin' Time.
Right.
And we did that at Cameo's office. It was a little 2x4 studio and with two Ampex tape recorders. And the group that backed me up was a group that I admired and listened to in Wildwood, New Jersey, at a place called the Rainbow Club. And the group was Georgie Young and the Rockin' Box. And Georgie Young is the guy who plays the alto solo on Kissin' Time. And he's a marvelous musician. He played alto, tenor, baritone, flute, soprano. He was a master musician. But as far, I mean, they wrote the tunes. I'd listen to the arrangement, and we'd go in and cut it. I remember Dave, we were coming back home from New York City after the Saturday night Dick Clark Beach Nut Spearmint Gum show. And he always had his guitar with him and he always had his pipe in his mouth. And we sat in the back seat of the limo and he says, when we get home, Bobby, this is going to be your next recording. And he started with the pipe in his mouth. Oh, wow, and he's singing it to me. And a couple of days, whatever, later, I go into, at that time, it was called Reco Art, which is now called Sigma Sound in Philadelphia on 12th and Vine Street in Center City, Philadelphia. But the original studio was called Reco Art, had a great sound, really, really great sounding studio. And we went in and recorded Wild One, and that became the first million seller.
Yeah, what a talent to not just be able to write the songs, but to have the arrangement in your head too. And
Oh, he was a marvelous arranger. Yeah, we recorded an album at RCA Studios in New York City. And Bernie Lowe wasn't really quite sure how the album came out, so we never released it. But on the recording of the date, we had Volare, Sway, and That Old Black Magic. And those three songs became singles for me. Yeah.
So a lot of these songs that you also covered, were those Dave's choices for you, or did you say, well, I'd really like to cover Volare or Sway?
No, what was I? When I signed with Cameo, I was about 17 years old. Musically, I knew a lot, but these people were in the business much, a heck of a lot more years than me. So I always listened to them, of course, always listened to them.
And Kissin' Time to me is such a magical record. I got to tell you, though, I don't know if you noticed this yourself, but it kind of reminds me a bit of Sweet Little 16, the Chuck Berry song, because it's mentioning a lot of cities in
you
there.
know what? Bernie Lowe and Cal Mann always had an ear for copying something. They what if there was Sweet Little 16 was out there, well, maybe Kissin' Time sounds a little bit. I remember a story. We had a writer in Philadelphia, and his name was Pete DeAngelis. And Pete recorded Frankie, my dear friend Frankie Avalon. And Pete wrote the arrangement for Frankie's song called Why. Okay. I'll never let you go.
Right.
So they went to court. I don't know if you know the story, because they said it sounded like In a Little Spanish Town. And Pete DeAngelis said, I never heard that tune. So if you really want to, In a Little Spanish Town, I'll never let you go. So, I don't think it was only me, quite a few artists always try to cop something from somewhere, and Bernie was a master at that. Bernie Lowe was a master at that.
And sometimes they don't realize it when they're doing it. It might be in their subconscious.
That's true too. I don't know. What did it? So I haven't a clue.
Now, at Cameo Parkway, was it a very healthy atmosphere or was it a very competitive one? I know you were really close with Chubby Checker, right?
Yeah, everybody. Dee Dee Sharp, and the Times, great people, really, really wonderful people. Caesar, one of the Times, is a super dynamite guy. He never forgets my birthday. To this day, he calls me up on my birthday, which is coming up April 26th. And when the phone rings, I know it's going to be Caesar. And possibly Dee Dee and Chubby, who knows, maybe one of the Dovells. It was pretty cool. It was nice, yeah.
Forgive me for not knowing this, but were there tours where they packaged a lot of the Cameo Parkway artists together? You're so well known for, touring with Fabian and Frankie. It would have been a cool idea. In those days, there were so many package tours.
Oh yeah, I mean, my first tour I did on maybe three or four. It was called the Dick Clark Caravan of Stars,
Mm,
and I only had two records at the time. I had Kissin' Time and We Got Love. And we're talking about people on the bus. We traveled on the bus for like 4 or 5 weeks on a bus, where the Coasters, the Drifters, Paul Anka,
mm,
headlining, Lloyd Price, and I was in awe of all of these people because I admired, all of these artists that were, I was associated, kind of like associated with, to be able to tour and get to know,
mm.
everybody. And it was a very, very healthy relationship. It was really great, a lot of fun. Getting back to Frankie and Fabe, my manager at that time was a man by the name of Dick Fox. And he
Hmm.
had an idea to put three Italian guys together who were, quote, teenage idols to do a tour. So we all talked to one another. Frankie called me, I called Fabe, Fabe called Frank, bump, bump, bump. And we all said, hey, man, this sounds like it's going to be a ball. And our first show was in Detroit, and it was SRO. And every place we did something like 45 to 60 dates back in 1985. And it was tremendous. It was absolutely tremendous. And Frankie and I go back. I've known Frank since I was 10 years old. Frankie, 2 years older than me. He was 12. He played trumpet. I played drums.
Mm.
So I would call him. I always call him Cheech, which is Frank in Italian. Hey, Cheech, how you doing, Cheech? So I said to him, yo, Cheech, I said, this is wonderful, but my God, how long is this going to last? A year, 2 years tops, it's over. That was 1985. We're still booked 2022.
That's amazing. Tells you the power
It
of
is
music.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, for sure. And I mean, and the people, they really, really love it because when the three of us are up there, we're just having fun, man. It's just fun. We're not trying to prove anything to anybody. We've been in the business. I'm in the business 61 years. Frank, maybe 62, three, whatever. Fabe, 60. So we're just three guys who were born and raised in South Philadelphia, lived only a couple of blocks away from one another. And Frank has a great line. He says, look at us three. Here we are working on stage. I remember when we used to hang out on the street corner together, and
Mm.
now we're hanging out on stage together. And that's what it is. We're just having a ball.
It's just amazing to me. And it's like I said, it's the power of the songs. And people still want to hear those songs over and over. And
Absolutely.
that's what you call
Absolutely.
classics. Yeah. Can you talk
Oh,
about
for sure. Yeah.
Forget Him, which is possibly my favorite song of
Yeah.
yours, and how that came
Great
about?
record. Great
Yeah.
record. Sure. Yeah. Well, that was back in, let me see, late 63. And Margaret and myself, we did a command performance for the royal family for Bye Bye Birdie.
Mm,
And while there, I toured with a young lady by the name of Helen Shapiro, a really fine singer in the UK. And then I recorded. I recorded for Pi Records. And the guy who wrote the song was a guy by the name of Tony Hatch, who wrote Downtown for Petula Clark, Call Me, uh, uh, and he wrote Forget Him. And we recorded it in London. And Bernie Lowe, Cowman, and Apple, Dave, there was no publishing, for Low Man and Apple.
mm.
And they didn't want to really release Forget Him. There was a disc jockey in Toronto, Canada on Chum Radio. His name was Dave Johnson. He started playing Forget Him. And from Canada, it leaked down into Detroit and it started. So they had to release it, thank God, because it became my third million seller. They didn't want to release it at first because no publishing.
Yeah, that's something. I mean, and that was a
Yeah,
song
for sure.
that became a big hit in the U.S. right around the time the Beatles broke. And since you just mentioned being in the UK with Helen Shapiro, who, by the
Correct.
way,
Yeah, that was 60.
she did tour with the Beatles in early '63. In the UK.
Who, Shapiro?
Yeah.
Helen
Yes.
Shapiro?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
she did.
Well, matter of fact, this is, you probably heard this story. We were on a bus, Helen Shapiro, my drummer at that time was a kid by the name of Carl Matola, And we're traveling throughout the UK, doing different cities, right? And it's about, 10, 11 o'clock at night, and we're on a highway, and there's a car in front of us. And Shapiro says, "They're the Beatles." Well, my drummer and I started looking around the bus for cockroaches. We didn't know what the hell is she talking about, you know? Anyway, the bus stopped, the car stopped. Four guys came on the bus. They knew me. I figured they were just four guys gigging, and working in a club date, whatever, a society, who the hell knows, And they went on their way, and we went on our way, and now I'm back home in Philadelphia, and I'm watching Ed Sullivan, and he introduces the Beatles, and I went, I met those guys. And what I could kick myself in the ass, excuse me, back then we didn't have the cell phones where you could, nobody carried a camera around. That would have been a great picture. Somewhere in the middle of the UK, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, they come on the bus, take a picture with me. That would have been wonderful.
So while you were in the UK, did you get
But
to hear?
let me see.
I was going to say, while you were in the UK, did you get to hear the Beatles' music then?
Yeah.
And what did you think of it?
Not at all. No.
No. Oh, you didn't get to hear.
I enjoyed. Yeah. Oh no, not in the UK. No, not in the UK. Back home here in the States.
Okay.
Yeah, I enjoyed a lot of things that they did. A lot of things.
If while you were in the UK, if you had the radio on, there was no way to avoid hearing the Beatles. So I was just wondering while you were there if you heard their music at all. It was only when you came back.
I hardly ever listened to the radio. I was always watching, the BBC, programs there, whatever. No, I never heard their songs, their recordings in the UK. Never.
So when they first exploded in America, what was your impression of them?
Well, what my first impression was, my God, I met those guys, and I didn't take a picture with them. My God. But I enjoyed a lot of the things that they did. I really enjoyed a lot of their records. Yesterday is one of my favorites. With Paul McCartney. What a great tune. Great tune. Matter of fact, sometimes if I'm working with players who they could play like any tune in any key, they're just tunesmiths. And I'll just call out. I say, yesterday, let's do yesterday in B flat or E flat. And boom, we do it yesterday. All my troubles seem so far away. And I love the tune. And I saw my wife and I, we went it's about 2-3 years ago. We went to the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia to see Paul McCartney. And we were fortunate enough, my wife and myself, to be able to take a picture with Paul. And the only way you get a picture with Paul is if he okays it. Other than that, it's lost, it's gone. But he okayed it. And I said, do you happen to remember, Paul, back in 1963? I was on a bus, and he said, "Oh, yeah, I think I don't know if he was kidding or not, but yeah, I enjoyed. And there was another thing I always used to watch when they were on Ringo. He was playing a set called William F. Ludwig, WFL, William F. Ludwig, and the set was Black Oyster Pearl. Right. And I had that set when I was 15. My father bought the set. We went to a place called A Street Music Sales, and my father lost his finger in work, and he got a big bonus. And I picked out William F. Ludwig, Black Oyster Pearl. Gorgeous set of drums. And when I saw Ringo on Sullivan playing, I said, I had that set before you, man.
Yeah, he was copying you. But just one thing, going back to Forget Him, did you meet Tony Hatch at all?
Yeah.
Did you meet him?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he was in the studio. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Love him. Love Tony.
You have to thank him. Like you said, he wrote most of Petula Clark's biggest hits. So,
sure. Yeah.
I'm a great admirer of his work. So
Yeah, he's
going back,
wonderful. Real
yeah, going back to the Beatles. Well, you covered "A World Without Love," and of
correct.
course, Peter and Gordon had a number
Not
one
that I
hit with it.
covered it.
You know,
Not that I covered it. I had recorded that. It was in the can.
hmm,
In the can. And my manager at that time, Frankie Day, we were driving to New York City on the Jersey Turnpike, and we heard Cousin Bruce Morrow, WABC
hmm.
radio. He says, "Here's two guys. Put that on there. Here's Pete and Gordon with World Without Love." And my manager and I, we looked at one another and said, "Oh my God, that's our next record." So they had a 2 week jump on us, right? Peter and Gordon. And we put it out anyway.
Hmm.
Uh, they had the hit. There were some, from what I understand, some disc jockeys were so fed up. They didn't play that. They didn't play Peter and Gordon. They didn't play me. Who played Peter and Gordon? Who played me? But they had the jump. And of course, their version of the song was totally different than mine. Mine was like big, was big, down,
Right.
down, 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 ding, ding, down, down, and Peter and going with, "Please lock me away and don't allow the day." Oh God.
I love both
Yeah.
versions, but the last time that I interviewed
Thank
Peter
you.
Asher, he was telling me, I was questioning him about this with your cover of it, and you went on the Ed Sullivan Show and did the song, and Peter and Gordon wanted to do
That's
it,
right.
but because of the fact that you went and did the song, there had to be some lag time before. Well, they didn't want to, you know, wait too long before they did it. They actually didn't perform at Ed Sullivan until they went into their third single called "I Don't Want to See You Again." They didn't perform "A
Oh,
World Without
I
Love."
didn't know that. I
Yeah.
didn't know that. I didn't know that. Matter of fact, we do a cruise ship
Hmm.
and it's called Malt Shop Memories. And the last cruise I did, Peter was on it.
Right.
So he came up to me, and said, "When you do your show, Bobby," he said, "do you think, it would be good if I came out and we did World Without Love?" I said, "Peter, that would be absolutely fantastic,
Hmm.
man." I said, "What key do you do it in?" He said, "A flat." I went, "A flat." So that's a pretty high key, A flat. So, and Jerry Blavitt, who is the host of the whole thing. He's a disc jockey, in Philadelphia. We call him the Georgie Jerry Blavitt, the man with the
Hmm.
goods. "Hey, my man, how you doing, my man?" And so he says, "We have a guy." Who and I said, "Well, who is it?" We're just trying to fool around, like I don't know who the hell's coming out. But anyway, he says, "Here's Peter Asher," and he comes out and people applaud, and we do World Without Love together. It was phenomenal. The audience just went crazy, but we did it in their style,
Yeah.
Peter and Gordon's style.
I'd love to see
It
a
was
video of
great. It
that.
was really great. I
Yeah.
think there may be something on YouTube.
I'll have to check it out
There may
after
be
we
something
finish
on.
this.
Yeah, see if you can get it. Yeah. And I said to Peter prior to, I said, "You don't mind if I do like a little, English, now instead of please lock me away, please lock me away and don't allow the day." He said, "No, man, that'd be great."
No, he's got a great sense of humor. When I spoke to him about
Yeah, he
you
does.
yeah, when I spoke to him about "A World Without Love," he had told me that the reason that you got the song was because Cameo Parkway was taken over by Alan Klein, and Alan Klein had
That's,
access.
that may be so. That may be so. I really don't know, Ken, but you're right. That possibly could have happened when
Yeah.
Alan Klein, yeah, took over.
Did
Yeah.
you
Hmm.
did you have any kind of relationship with Alan? See, this is how I work the Beatles
Not
into the
really.
conversation.
Oh,
Not really.
not really. I didn't. I don't think I ever met Alan. I know his son very well, but I've never met. I don't think I ever met Alan.
Hmm. Okay. Very good.
Other than the
Was
fact that he got all of the Cameo Masters,
and for a
all from
long
Beatles.
time they were out of print, right?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's right. And then I guess it was his son, who said, "Hey, yo, Pop, let's go back in, remaster, and boom, 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 and and they did.
Yeah, because if you go online now, if you go on YouTube, there's a lot of different versions of your songs that are on there, and they're not the originals.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Anyway, could you talk more about some of the singers that you admired throughout your career? I mean, you were on a lot of TV shows. I know you were on Perry Como and I think Danny
Right.
Thomas and a lot of those
Oh yeah.
people.
Perry was absolute sweetheart. I remember he asked me to do a thing for the Duke's Children's Classic. And basically, it was a golf tournament and a show. And on the show was Tennessee Ernie Ford,
Hmm.
Jay Leno, me, Sinatra, and Como. And I got called off the golf course to go rehearse. Now, we had no charts, nothing. It was just like five pieces: piano, bass, drums, guitar, maybe tenor or alto.
Uh-huh.
Um, and they said, "What would you like to sing, Bob?" I said, "Well, let's do all of me in C." He said, "Well, maybe Frank's going to do that." I said, "Okay, if Frank is going to do all of me, I guess I've got you under my skin is totally out of the question, right?" So anyway, make a long story short, and I hadn't met Sinatra at that point yet.
Hmm.
I met him when I was 19. This was, I don't know how old I was, whatever. And so what I did was all of me, Here's That Rainy Day, and Volare. And I took my dad with me, and I introduced my father to Perry. I said, "Mr. Como," I said, "this is my father, Adrio Ridarelli, which is my real name."
Right.
And Perry said, where are your people? Where do your people come from in Italy?" And my father said, "Marchi." And Perry said, "You're not Italian." Because Perry is Bruzzese, Abruzzese. And I'm half Bruzzese. My mother's side was Bruzzese. My father's side was Marchi, which is on the east coast of Italy, right off the
Okay.
Adriatic Sea. And my father's first name was Adrio. He was named after the Adriatic Sea. But Perry was funny. "You're not Italian."
That's funny. Did
And
you
another guy that I adored, of course, was Bobby Darin.
oh yeah.
Bobby Darin, I remember when I met his son, I was in Vegas, and we talked about, and Dodd Darin, he thanked me because I do a medley of Bobby's tunes. I do Splish Splash, That's All, Beyond the Sea, Mac the Knife. And he gave me, it was three a photo of Dodd when he was about 3 years old, and Bobby's holding him in the center. On the left side is the original studio drum chart of Mac the Knife, and on the right, the original studio drum chart of Up a Lazy River.
Wow.
And I said to Dodd, "Dodd, I can't have this, man." I said, this is too precious." He said, "No." He said, "You're keeping my father's memory alive, please." And it's just wonderful. And I also have, I don't know who did it, a charcoal picture of Bobby, right? Just a
Hmm.
face,
Yeah.
and it's absolutely phenomenal. And it's signed to me. It says, "To Bobby, I wish for you what I wish for myself, your friend, Bobby Darin." How cool is that, man? How cool.
Man, that's really something.
Yeah.
I'm choked up.
Yeah, really. I started crying. Backstage, he brought his wife, Dodd Darin, his wife, his two children, and it touched me, emotionally as well. You
Hmm.
know,
Now, talk again about Frank Sinatra because apart from meeting him when you were 19, you also recorded for his record company,
yes, I
correct?
did. Unfortunately, nothing ever happened. Uh, I remember I was doing the date, and who was playing guitar on the date but Glen Campbell
Hmm.
playing guitar. Glenn, marvelous, marvelous singer and one hell of a guitar player.
Sure.
So I did a song called The Lovin' Things. It's the loving things you do that make me whatever. Blah, blah, blah. And Glen Campbell says, wow, Bobby, he says, looks like you're back on the charts again. I said, wow, thank you, man. It was a good record. Nothing ever happened. The Grassroots covered it and it charted. And then another song that I did on reprise was The River is Wide.
Right.
Nothing happened. Grassroots covered it. They charted. So I didn't have any luck, you know. But
So,
when, you know, when Mr. Sinatra, you know, asks you to record for his company, you say, how much do I owe you, Mr. S? Yeah, it was, you know, it was nice. It was nice to be able to record on reprise. Yeah, for sure.
just the thought that, he remembered you and wanted you to be on his company, the record label. That's such an
Well,
honor.
you know, I don't know if you're aware of a disc jockey in Philadelphia who plays nothing but Sinatra. His name is Sid Mark.
Yep. I've
Years
heard of him.
ago, you know, Sid. Okay, years ago, Sinatra was at the Spectrum in Philadelphia. At that time, he was campaigning for Hubert Humphrey.
Hmm.
Sid Mark and Mike Douglas, who had a TV show
Sure.
in Philadelphia, where
Hmm.
they're sitting front row ringside. Me and my first wife, Camille, we're sitting about 10 rows back. Sinatra's on stage and he says, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce someone to you who's a very dear friend, and he's a saloon singer, such as myself. How about a nice round of applause for my friend? And Sid Mark told me that Mike Douglas started getting up out of his seat. The old man goes, Bobby Rydell. Now he's going, where are you, Bobby? Where are you? Now everybody around me going, he's here, Frank. He's here. He's right here, Frank. Throw the light on him. Now the spotlight comes around, hits me. I stand up. Sinatra goes like this. I go like this. Now everybody around me is saying to Frank, bring him up, Frank, bring him up, bring him up. He go right into bop, 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 New York, New York, and he flew the coop, and that was it.
But that was
But
still
you know,
that was a sweet gesture.
you kidding? You know, the Spectrum was in South Philadelphia. I was
Yeah.
born and raised in South Philadelphia. Everybody in the Spectrum was from South Philadelphia, for
Right.
crying out loud. You know, what an honor. What an honor to be, you know, picked out. And Mike Douglas thought it was him.
Wow.
But
I'm glad
no, no.
I'm glad you brought up those two songs that the Grassroots did because I love both versions. You know,
Never heard mine, did you?
I did. Yours is
You
faster.
heard mine?
Yeah, faster
Let me
than the way
see.
they did
It's
it.
the love and things you
I'm talking about
do
the river is
that make
wide.
the river ride was the river is wide.
Right.
Yeah,
You did it faster than the
I think
Grassroots.
that. Yeah, I think I did. I think I did. Maybe that was the reason they never became hits.
I don't know. Talk a little bit
Slow it
about
down. Slow it down.
Bye Bye Birdie and what that experience was like for you. When I look back at a movie like that, not only is it a great musical, but what a great cast. I mean,
Yeah,
what?
yeah. Paul Lynde, Dick Van Dyke, Janet Leigh, Maureen Stapleton, Anne Margaret, and me. Get
Hmm.
out of here, you know. And I remember Anne Margaret and I, we screen tested for George Sidney, who was the director of Bye Bye Birdie, and just a marvelous director. Did a lot of great, great movies, great films. So we tested, you know, and when you screen test, they want to see what kind of personality you have, how you come across on camera. Read some lines from the script, did a couple of lines of one boy, one special boy, one special girl, so on and so forth.
Hmm.
Mr. Sidney said, thank you very much. You know, thank you so much. We'll be in touch. 2 weeks later, my manager calls, Frankie Day, says they want you for the part of Hugo Peabody. Now, I had seen the show. Hugo Peabody did nothing. He didn't sing, he didn't dance, he had no lines.
Hmm.
I said, what the hell kind of a part? Make a long story short, Mr. Sidney saw some kind of magic between Anne Margaret and myself. And every day that I went to Columbia Studios, my script got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. With the dialogue, the singing, and with the dancing. You know, with that big number that we do in Bye Bye Birdie, the Lots of Living number. It was a fantastic, fantastic, great, you know, dance scene.
Hmm. Oh yeah, Got a Lot of Living to Do is such a highlight for me. I mean, the choreography on that was
Oh,
wonderful. You know, it makes me think of
oh
West
my
Side
God,
Story
that and
somewhat.
that. Oh, well, our choreographer, her name Anna White, she was absolutely fantastic, and she broke her leg, and she still taught us the Lots of Living number on crutches.
Mm,
She had, she had an assistant, a gentleman by the name of Tommy Panko, who was the assistant choreographer. But on the way, even with crutches, she was teaching us, all of those moves,
yeah.
And I was never one that lay down taps. I wasn't a tap dancer, but I was a good mover. And mostly all of the things that you see and Got a Lot of Living to Do, the Lots of Living number is a lot of moves. Everything is this that all
Right.
moves. And I was really very very proud of myself. The way because they were all everybody on the crew. Excuse me, not the crew, but the cast were dancers. You know, I I just happened to be a guy who could learn quick and I knew how to move pretty good at the time. So I was very proud of myself, during that
Yeah.
filming of that number.
When's the last time you did that dance?
1963. 1963 was the last time I did that dance.
That's hard to keep up. Can you just talk briefly
Oh my God, for sure.
about Dick Van Dyke? I mean, this was really before he became
I didn't
star.
really do that much. I didn't really do that much with Dick, but I mean, everybody got along on the set real well. I mean, I don't think there was one place, one time, one incident that, somebody, excuse me, got pissed off about something. It was a good crew. It was a very, very, it was a lot of fun, a
Yeah.
lot of fun. And, the movies, it's like the army, hurry up and wait. You could be in makeup at like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning and maybe they don't use you because it all depends where they are in the script, how the lighting is. If we're shooting outside, like the high school scene where Bertie comes to town, and we hate you, Conrad, or we
Yeah.
love you, but so you never know, yeah, And I could remember I was in makeup by 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, and they didn't use me at all because the script didn't call for it. Oh, well, you got to
Must
be
have
there
been.
just in case they want to, flip the pages and let's do this scene.
You know, whenever I think of Paul Lynde, apart from the Hollywood Squares and being in Bewitched,
Oh
you
my
know,
God. Oh, please.
you know, the first thing in my mind is kids. I hear him singing kids,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. 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 He was wonderful. He was absolutely wonderful. I had some scenes with him, in the house, with the Mr. and Mrs. McAfee.
Uh,
But yeah, yeah, of course, Anne was Kim McAfee, in the movie.
hmm.
Yeah, yeah, that was a great number. And
Oh.
I love you.
Do you do that in
I
your
love
act?
you. Kids, I don't. No, I do not. No, no. Well, I used to do a medley. I used to do a medley from Birdie. I would do Lots of Living, Kids, Put on a Happy Face. I
Right.
still have it. I got to pull that back out again because it's a good medley.
Hmm.
Medley. I don't do it like Paul Lynde did it. We do it like the chart goes something like dun 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 da ba da down. Kids, I don't know what's wrong with these kids today, but bottom down. Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
but you know, uh, he was funny. My God, Paul Lynde, Jesus.
just the expressions on his face made you laugh. So,
Oh God, and the Hollywood Squares.
oh,
Yeah, I go on YouTube all the time just to watch him, just to watch Paul Lynde. Because he was
it's
funny as hell. My God.
it's amazing what he got away with on that show.
Mm, absolutely,
All the
absolutely.
sexual innuendo stuff.
Him and Charlie Weaver. Charlie
That's true.
Weaver was. Remember him too?
Yeah,
He was
sure.
funny too. They used to get away. They used to get away with a lot of stuff. My God.
That's the best part of the show. Can I ask just a
Really,
few
really.
questions? A few questions about Grease, the musical. And we all know that
Yeah.
Rydell High School was named after you. Now, was that from the very beginning when it was a musical before the movie? Was it always Rydell High?
Honestly, I don't know. I remember going to see it because Frankie, was in it.
Right.
He was Teen Angel, beauty school dropout, and so on and so
Sure.
forth. And then all of a sudden I see Rydell High. I said, oh my God. And everybody asked me that question. And I said, I don't know. Could have been Presley High, Fabian High, Everly High,
Uh-huh.
Anchor High. They picked me. They picked me. What an honor. My God. So, to be involved in Greece, with One Way, the Rydell High School, and Bye Bye Birdie, they're two classics. I mean,
Sure.
they're the two shows that high schools put on. They put on Bye Bye Birdie or they do Grease.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I was wondering, since Frankie was in the movie, didn't they ask you?
Who did I'm trying to remember who I had as my manager at that time. I've been through a lot of managers after Frankie Day, and they were all no good. They were all rotten. They were no.
Oh,
So as far as career moves, nothing. They just wanted to keep me working, and get their 10%. That was it. So I don't know if I was ever mentioned for the part. Maybe they figured that if Rydell High was the name of the high school, why would we have Bobby Rydell as Teen Angel? I don't know what their thinking was,
I mean,
but
any kind of cameo.
management, what?
Yeah, any kind of cameo appearance. That's all that I'm thinking. Just for you to appear there, even for a minute,
Well, you know
would have
what?
been
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, well, that would have been nice, a cameo appearance, doing a waiter.
I don't know. You could have been like Alfred
I
Hitchcock in
don't
the
know.
movie.
What are you going to do? Hey,
Yeah.
it's over. It's over.
All right. So you put out a book a few years ago. You want to talk a little bit about it? Called Teen Idol on the Rocks.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Bobby Rydell, Teen Idol on the Rocks, A Tale of Second Chances. And I can remember back, when I was in my teens and like early 20s, 2021. And after show, everybody would sit around, and talk. And everybody would say to me, Bobby, you have so many great stories. Why don't you write a book? I said, who the hell wants to, read a book about an 18-year-old, 22-year-old kid? I said, it's ridiculous. So, later on in life, my future, my excuse me, today, excuse me, it's my dog. It's
That's all
Bella.
right.
Um, she said, yeah, well, when he hears something outside, protection,
That's
and he
okay.
gets that bark on. So we love it. Hell yeah,
Dog.
absolutely. Uh, yeah. So a guy by the name of Alan Slutsky, who's a wonderful guitar player in Philadelphia. He also did a documentary on Standing in the Shadows of Motown about the Funk
Okay.
Brothers, right?
Sure.
So I got together with Alan and we spent like a year, close to 2 years, and I poured my heart out. I said, if we're going to do this, Alan, I said, it has to be very sincere. It's got to come from the heart, you know, excuse me, no BS. I want to tell it the way it is. And I'm very proud of the book, the way it came out. It's an easy read and it goes from my early life, when I started with my dad, when I was 7 years old,
Hmm.
up until, today.
Okay.
It's a good book. I'm really very proud of it.
When you look back, is there one or two particular songs of yours that you cite as being your favorites that you're most proud of?
Well, Volare is my opening music. Like before I walk on stage, the band plays ba da da
Hmm.
ba da da da, right? And the late boom, drum roll. Ladies and gentlemen, Bobby right down. I come out, whatever is my opening tune.
Hmm.
Could whatever it is, the opening tune. Of course, the closing tune is Volare, and then my bow music is Volare. So I think that's the song that is probably most associated with me. And that's what I call my signature song. Other than Wild One and Swing in School and We Got Love and Forget Him and Sway and Old Black Magic, yada, yada, yada. That's my signature song, Volare.
Yeah. Well, all those songs you just mentioned, I love, you know, and even though it sounds cliched,
Good
it's part,
records.
yeah, they're part of our DNA. And I really do
Oh,
believe that.
it doesn't sound no, thank you, Ken. It doesn't sound cliche at all. No, it's a compliment, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much. They were all very, very well recorded records, other
Mm.
than the fish.
Oh, come on. When, when this interview's over,
Oh,
I'm going to find my 45 and play it.
you're
It's a,
nuts. Why don't you go back and play Kissing Time or Volati or Wild One? Oh my
okay.
God, the
Or
fish.
forget him. Forget him is still my favorite, but
Freak.
yeah.
Good
Well,
record. Play
Bobby,
that one.
yeah, this has been tremendous for me. It's a great honor, and as soon as you're back on the
Well, thank
road,
you. I mean, specifically, excuse me, specifically because you're a big fan of the Beatles and you
mm,
picked me, to be on your show, and that's to be associated with the Beatles is wonderful. So I thank you ever so much. It's very, very nice of you.
hmm well, I'm just honored that you took part in this interview with me, and I'm a major fan. And as soon as you're back on the road, you let me know because I definitely want to see you and Frankie and Fabian.
Well, people, if you want to know, you can go to BobbyRydell.com.
Mm,
If people want to order the book is on there under merchandise, and it also has tour dates that are coming up. And there's quite a few tour dates that are coming up.
hmm
Uh, Now, matter of fact, this past March 18th and 19th, I was in Orlando, Florida, and we worked a place. I'm trying to remember what the name of it was. It was a performing arts center, not right in Orlando, about 40 minutes outside of Orlando. And we did two shows. We did 18th and 19th, and the crowds were there. We couldn't do one show because too many people,
Right.
right? So we had to split it into 2 days, 18 and 19. And it went great. The Mystics were on there, a very dear friend of mine, Joey D, who's a dear friend. He was on. I was the headliner. And it worked out great. It was wonderful. It was great to be back on stage, to be able to work, for the fans who've been fans for God knows, how many years. It was absolutely tremendous to be on stage again.
Yeah, things are starting to open up.
Looking for, and it's starting to open up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, no, matter of fact, I just called the other day. I called Frankie because a very dear friend of ours who traveled with Frankie and traveled with me, traveled with quite a few people. His name was Sonny Troy, guitar player. His real name was Gagliardi.
hmm
The stage name was Troy. And unfortunately, he passed away a couple of days ago. So I called Frank and we started talking about, all the great times we used to have with Sonny, the laughs we used to have, tremendous. So, and even Frank said, he said, "Are you looking forward to get?" I said, "Yeah, man. Aren't you looking forward to get back on stage again?" Yeah, he said, "I don't know if I'll remember anything."
Well, apart from loving the fact that you're still out there doing this and grateful for that, it's just very endearing to me to know that the three of you are as close as you are. And in some ways, the friendship is, just as much important, as the music. It says
Oh
something
my
about the
God,
three of you, how close the three of you guys are.
it's so funny. It's not that it's funny. Like I said, I've known Frank since I was 10. Frank was 12. He played trumpet. I played drums. And we go around, we do shows for USO, veterans hospitals, and stuff like that, and work a
Mm,
few little club dates here and there. Although I was on the 2400 block of South 11th Street, Fabian was on the 2500 block of South 11th Street. I never knew him until the business,
right.
because in South Philadelphia, each particular block had a certain what we call hang. You know, guys that you hung with, the girls that you hung with, the soda shop that you went to,
Mm,
and a half a block away was totally different. It was just totally different. It was like insane.
yeah.
So I didn't know Fabe until the business. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I,
to this day, the three of us are as close as we've ever been.
that's great. You're a family. So, yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
All right, Bobby. Thanks so much
Like I
for
said
doing
earlier,
this. Yeah. Good.
No, it's my pleasure, Ken. Thank you.
I said this is an honor,
Ever talk to?
and anytime you want to be a guest, just let me know. Be happy to talk about any shows that you're doing. You have a home right here.
Thank you ever so much. And like I said, if people want to see, they can just go bobbyrydell.com and look at tour dates to see what's coming up if we're going to be anywhere in their area.
Okay. Thanks so much and take care. Love to you and your family.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you ever so much, Ken.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye
Same here, my friend. Thank you.
bye.